So I've watched this. I don't know why I'm watching. To be fair, I don't know why I'm watching these kind of movies because if they do not annoy me, they end up angering me. At this point, even horror movies, even insistent horror movies, are just anyway. But yeah, they are boring. I admit. Like the only thing more boring than war movies probably is you know yeah, westerns or such, or even sport movies. The sport movies probably are hmm, maybe on par with, I don't know. They can be boring as well, but can be interesting due to personal. Uh, war movies do have the positive that they're usually grounded in some sort of reality, unless it's propaganda, in which case it's not realistic at all. Still don't know how much of this was real and how much wasn't. But having watched this, it doesn't seem to be too unfair to either side in the sense about the Battle of River Plate. I've never heard of it before actually. Um, it's a very old film as well. I don't know why I'm just you know. But anyway, yeah, it's a weird one. I gotta admit. As opposed to where in the last movie I watched, they didn't even, they tried to hide the fact that someone on the Allied side made friends with someone on the Nazi side. For some reason, despite it being a crucial element in their life, the person, it's like they just wanted to just brush it away. Pure propaganda, in my opinion. Here, on the other hand, it was the highlight of the story. Um, I mean, he wasn't a you know, this guy wasn't, it didn't seem to be like, you know, I still need to read about this guy. I really don't know much about it at all. In fact, yeah, upon reading very little about it, upon just looking at it, I'm guessing it is unrealistic then, because well, he survives in the end, doesn't he? Yeah, Langsdorff, whereas apparently he doesn't in real life. So I don't know what else then is just not real. But yeah, isn't it great? It's a classic case of being outnumbered, isn't it? I mean, it's remarkably so. There were more casualties on the Allied side. 72 versus 36. They had more wounded, but not casualties. Um, somehow, um, mm, so the so-called cruiser was scuttled, whereas the other two just badly damaged. Which is still something, considering, I mean, considering it was 1 versus 3, the fact that 2 out of those 3 were badly damaged, and more than double, not more than double, about double, were killed on from those 3 ships. That's yeah. I mean, under normal circumstances, I would not call that an Allied victory. I don't know why they think it's a victory, but I'm assuming this guy committed suicide apparently. I really don't know why they don't just depict everything that happened. It's not like it's a case of in the sense I also don't know why. he didn't depict it. I mean, whether they depicted a suicide or not doesn't make much difference in terms of, I don't know, maybe they just wanted to end with a positive note or something, and sort of, the friendship. I don't know. I mean, I realize these aren't documentaries, but what was the point of not just, not saying? I mean, there was so much nonsense, though. Honestly, just this is the problem with the movie in general. So this is so that there was so much, firing and shooting or not. You know, I mean, sure there was in real life, I'm assuming, but it occupied a huge amount of time in the movie that it just ended up being boring, especially that sequence where they kept chaining their commands. I mean, come on, they did like 3, 4 times. I honestly don't know if they were trying to deliberately bore the audience, unless there's someone excited about, oh, look, they're chaining their commands. Oh, they're doing it again. Oh, again. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm sure there's some people who are excited by the constant firing of cannons. I'm pretty sure. Somehow, not personally. What I found most interesting was at the end. I mean, I knew very little about this battle. I found what happened at the end that was interesting. Apparently, this might have really happened here. There's a whole section about the trap of Montevideo. I'll ask them to read this out to know the differences. But yeah, this is the problem. So the sequence with the firings was so long that it sort of, you know, my mind just sort of shut down. It was so boring that it's like I was just, I really never go to sleep in any movie, right? Otherwise, it's not watching a movie. But it's, when there's a lot of repetition, in this case, firing of cannons, the repetition sort of becomes, one. It just becomes all, well, repetition, So it's sort of like an echo. Uh, and what happened afterwards, then I didn't sort of enjoy it as much as I could have. I mean, it was very interesting, everything that happened. Sure that journalist guy on the microphone, they had very funny microphones back then. Uh, yeah, that guy was a bit cheesy, but otherwise, it was interesting to know what happened. The fact that first they tried to make the ship leave as soon as possible, and they changed their strategy, and then just to see how a neutral country would navigate in this sense is interesting. This is something that they could have done in The Man Who Never Was as well. We do not see much of what Spain was supposed to be doing in the background. We only sort of see uh, it's the ramifications, but not really much else. Obviously, Spain did a lot more than it was supposed to have done, being a supposed neutral country. And so it would have been interesting to see what Spain did. In this case, then with Uruguay, we saw what happened in the background with that guy. I'm not entirely sure if he was the head of state or just a ambassador or something. But yeah, it was interesting the way he tried to handle it. At one point, bizarre though, he said, "Oh, I'm short, but I have 2 million heads." Wow, okay, Hydra. That's one of heads. Yeah. Um. Yeah, otherwise, it's interesting. I mean, the fact that this ship could sink so many, then it was practically pincered, as I'm assuming, by 3 other ships. Yeah, and then, yeah, the most interesting bit, though, yeah, definitely was at Uruguay. So I'll just read a bit for now. And yeah, I've read as much as possible about this battle. I've read the short biographies of both captains as well, and it seems like it is mostly accurate. I mean, obviously, like most movies, it's not fully accurate. There's some things that didn't happen, and such, some embellishments. Mostly accurate, mostly, which is the least one can expect in a movie. I mean, I'm not going to be mad that they included a scene where the captains convene to discuss strategy just so the audience could know what the strategy is. Somehow that didn't happen apparently in real life. But it's I think it's a positive that the audience knows the kind of strategy they're having. It's that's where the artistic license really be uh, should be effective, as opposed to if you go further, and only paint certain characters in a totally good light or totally negative light, even that's when it turns into propaganda, right? Which is what happened in this recent terrible one movie I've seen, whose title even is propagandistic, you know. Uh, yeah, what was it called? Reach for the Sky. So idiotic, right? So yeah, I mean, this seems to depict it mostly accurate, as I say. It's remarkable, of course, that there aren't many movies where Nazis are depicted, as somewhat sympathetic. Personally, not so. I've read a bit, and it doesn't seem like he was really hated by his underlings, like that guy was and Reach for the Sky, which is absurd. I mean, if his underlings really hated him, how could you say in a movie that they didn't? Yeah, it's the most absurd thing ever. Here, on the other hand, it seems like, as was said in the movie at the end, somehow even his enemies seem to respect him just because he didn't just go all out and, not only sink the ships but also kill everyone on board. So it seems like he did indeed take prisoners and presumably, although I haven't read specifically about this, wasn't anything about it specifically. Presumably, he treated them well as well on board the ships. So not, there were many instances during World War II where prisoners of war were treated badly. So, just because they were prisoners and not outright killed doesn't mean that's naturally, the only thing that I could see that was at fault was they didn't depict his suicide, which isn't by itself a way to depict him either positively or negatively. They just omitted what happened afterwards. So technically, it happened afterwards. So you could say they just simply didn't continue it from after the scuttling. But yeah, um, the one thing it didn't depict as well, I thought, in relation to that, but it still technically happened afterwards. They just didn't exactly have much of a commentary about how much he subscribed to the country's ideology at the time, which is obviously a crucial aspect because apparently from his biography it seems like he participated in World War I and then did want to also do something in the Navy in World War II, which indicates that he did want to contribute towards the effort, which he did, even though if despite failing ultimately. What I think indicates that he was a supporter was his letter. Uh, before he wrote before he committed suicide, where he did pledge his loyalty. I honestly have no idea why people will ever do that, despite you know. I mean, it's one thing to pledge loyalty, just so you could get a career boost or whatever. But if you're about to commit suicide, I seriously have no idea why anyone would. So that indicates, at any rate, indicates that he might have been an ideologue, like many others at the time. He just didn't seem to display it. I mean, as atrociously, with regards to his treatment um, of prisoners of war and such. So yeah. Otherwise, though, the movie is mostly accurate. That's the point, I think. So I do not fault it as much as I fault it that other, pure propaganda movie. Also made by, I think, the same organization. I think I'm not sure, rank, but not entirely sure about it. But obviously not the same directors and didn't have the same actors. So anyway, yeah. So I cannot fault it for any apparent effort to propagandize one way or another. Although saying that, it seems like despite being more truthful than Reach for the Sky, yeah, it seems like it wasn't as popular. So clearly, propaganda is essentially, and it is somehow more popular, which is bizarre, isn't it? But somehow, yeah, which is why more propaganda is made. Yeah, and since they see that it's popular, so they simply want to do something else that is popular once more, which is a pity. Uh, yeah, it's not like it wasn't known, but it's not quite as known, and currently, the average rating is lower, despite the other movie being just pure propaganda, really. But somehow people are head, I guess one could say. People are easily fooled into thinking that a movie is better than it is. I mean, if something is propaganda, it just is, you know. Or maybe they thought it just had more entertainment value because, well, to be honest, personally, I don't see much entertainment value in war movies, unless they are clever, like the Man Who Never Existed was, but that had more to do with uh, intelligence agencies and out, outwitting others as opposed to you know m- direct military conflict. So that was more interesting, but if I'm already watching, this wasn't entirely and purely entertaining. Got to admit, the most interesting bit, as I mentioned earlier, was at the end when they were trying to when they were trying to decide whether to go one way or another. But if something isn't really very entertaining, and just someone being reckless isn't entertaining, just isn't, you know. And somehow they call recklessness heroic as well. I cannot bear propaganda. That's pretty much it. So in addition to which, it wasn't really entertaining. So then, in my opinion, it's a terrible war movie. This was better, yeah, sure better. Just purely, yeah, because it's not propaganda. It wasn't too terribly entertaining either. It was a bit more entertaining. It didn't have and recklessness and nonsense things. But it's still. I mean, it's there. I mean,